told you I was on your side. I told you I would never hide. So you can put your hand in mine, 'cause I'll be keeping by your side. I'll love you till the stars turn cold, and I'll love you like this ring I hold. Yes, around it goes, a circle never knows the end of the line. So you will find with our love, 'cause this love is a band of gold. When the fire's burning and when the embers feel cold. So when I hold you in my arms, I hope you know that this love is a band of gold.
Hello, and welcome to Quiet Happiness Knits podcast, formerly called
I'm never getting over you.
from the state of Maine, which today is unseasonably warm, so I'm outside. I am a freshly college graduated accountant who loves to talk about knitting and other crafty things that I may get into. Today, I'm going to talk about, first of all, my new name. Secondly, I have been knitting all the socks lately, so I'll talk about the socks that I've been working on, and then finally some of my knitting plans for 2020. Thank you so much to new and returning viewers. Thank you for popping by and watching. So yeah, let's jump right in. First of all, Happy New Year. I cannot believe it is already 2020, but here we are. And as I said, it is a weirdly warm day here in Maine. Today is January 11th, and it is 55 degrees, which is ridiculous. So I'm sitting here, I don't have a coat on, I don't have a scarf, it's amazing. So I thought I would film outside today, which is my preferred way to film podcast episodes. I say my preferred method. I don't know how many podcasts I uploaded in 2019, it was not very many. And that will definitely be how things are going forward. Like I said, I'm an accountant now, and I'm a tax accountant, and so tax season will be kicking up in just a couple of weeks, and I'll be working a lot more. So this will probably be the last podcast until April at the earliest, like late April. So here we are. Also, I got a haircut. Speaking of tax season, I got a haircut today. I could say that it's, a New Year's haircut, but in all actuality, it is a tax season is coming and I can't be bothered with my haircut. So all the changes. So speaking of changes, I thought I would just briefly talk about the new name for the podcast. Some of you may have seen I posted about it on Instagram at the beginning of this week. So basically, Goldberry Artisans was the name that I came up with. I was going to start an Etsy shop with my sister, and then I started an Etsy shop. She didn't end up being able to get anything in it. I had it open for a little while. And so that was kind of the name that I stuck with. It was the name that I had, I was on Instagram as Goldberry Artisans. I had the email address, I had a blog, and everything. And so that was just kind of the name that I went with for several years. But it was kind of like I feel like nobody really understood it, like it was just kind of a random name. And it just kind of felt like it was time to switch over to a name that fit now versus when I was a freshman in high school. Which, oh my goodness, was like 8 years ago now. So yeah, the name for Quiet Happiness comes from a quote from Anne of Green Gables. I'm just looking it up I want to make sure that I get it right. So basically, I kind of decided that I wanted a new name, and as I often do, I turned to my favorite quotes and looked there for inspiration. And okay, so the quote is from Anne of Green Gables. It says, "If the path set before her feet was to be narrow, she knew that flowers of quiet happiness would bloom along it. The joy of sincere work, worthy aspiration, and congenial friendship were to be hers. Nothing could rob her of her birthright of fancy or her ideal world of dreams, and there was always the bend in the road." I love that part about the path being set before her feet. It may not be the fancy dream world that you imagine for yourself, or that Anne imagined for herself, but she knew that flowers of quiet happiness would bloom along it. And I just really liked how that fits where I'm at right now. You know, I graduated from college. I still have studying to do for the certified public accountant exams. You know, I'm working full time now. But my life is full of quiet happiness, not necessarily big flashy things all the time, not headline newsworthy things, but just I love that image of the flowers of quiet happiness blooming along the road and the journey of life that you're going down. So that is where the new name for quiet happiness came from. So, and I know it can be hard to remember sometimes when there's an Instagram name change to something completely different. So hopefully it's not too confusing and everybody realizes who's posting. I know there have been times when somebody I follow has changed their Instagram name, and maybe they posted about it and I missed it, or maybe they didn't post about it or something, and I'll be confused for a little bit. But hopefully it all goes okay. So yeah, so that is my name change. So we can jump right into the knitting. So I feel like last year I didn't knit a ton of socks. I basically always have a pair of socks on the needles. I find they're just a really good travel project, keep it in my purse or my backpack when I was going to school, or if I was going to an event or something, or going to hang out at somebody's house. You know, it's just nice to have that small, easy project to work on. So I always had a pair on the needles in some shape or form, but then it's something at the end of the year I just suddenly wanted to knit, just cast on a ton of socks. I say a ton, I've got 3 pairs going right now. So the first pair that I'm working on, and it's funny, I have 1 pair, I'm knitting 2 at a time on magic loop, 1 pair on double pointed needles, and 1 pair on 9-inch circular needles. So I've got all the bases covered. Except for magic loop 1 at a time. It's the one thing I'm not doing right now. But the first pair, and I hope the wind noise isn't too much. I have the wind noise reduction on my camera, but I hope it's not too much. The first pair of socks that I'm working on, the pattern is called No Cold Feet. It's a So there's nothing to get knitters excited about yarn than to tell them that it's one of a kind. So of course I had to buy some. So this is her label. There you go. Her label, it's called Blue Moon Yarn because, as she says, she dyes it every once in a blue moon. And that's the name of the yarn. So there were a bunch of skeins of yarn, and also so there was a wall display with full skeins hanging on the wall, and then in front there were mini skeins. So I matched up, I kind of found a mini skein that I really liked, and then went around to try to find, I tried to match it to a full skein. So I ended up going with this really pretty, it's got purple, teal, yellow, green, and white in the little mini skein. And then I matched it to this gorgeous teal color. So you can see I'm doing the heels. This is not a heel. I'm doing the toes and the heels in the contrast mini skein, and then I will be doing the cuffs contrasting as well. So the pattern is not written to have any sort of increases like for taller socks, but I knit a pair of Advent socks, which I'm realizing I forgot to bring out with me, but I'll go grab. And I did some leg increases to make them taller, to use up all of the to use more of the Advent yarns. So I may do some leg increases after a certain point. We'll see. But I just really love this yarn. So yeah, it's always like sometimes I want to make taller socks to use up more of the yarn in the socks themselves instead of being left with like 20 to 30 grams left, which is often what I end up with after a pair of socks. So we'll see it. But I like having knee-high socks primarily to wear at home, because then if I like have a skirt or something on, I'll put on knee-high socks and then I can still be warm in the winter. But I don't necessarily wear them to work in the office where I can't control the temperature. I find if I wear hand knit socks to work, my feet just get really warm. So taller socks would probably be primarily for wearing at home, or just if I'm going somewhere that's not work. So yeah, these are the no cold feet socks. And I wanted to do them 2 at a time, just so that I could split the yarn up in case I wanted to do knee-high socks. I knew that I would have enough yarn to do both of the socks the same, which is why I often end up with yarn left over from socks, because I'll knit the first one and then want to make sure I have enough yarn left over to knit the second one. I always do, and I always worry. So, whatever. So those are the socks and the bag I'm using. I don't always talk about my project bags, but this one is so cute. It is from Olivia of This Handmade Life, and it's got the cutest, I don't know what the technique is called, but basically she sewed fabric onto the fabric to make this cute little teacup. And so that fabric matches like this around the drawstring. And the inside, I don't know how well you can see it, but the inside is Miss Marple fabric. Miss Marple is a character in a mystery series by Agatha Christie, all the Miss Marple books, and I love Agatha Christie. So T plus Miss Marple fabric was fabulous. The stains are provided by yours truly, not by Olivia. So those are my 2 at a time magic loop socks. I also have a pair of socks on double pointed needles. So these socks are for, I have a really good friend who also graduated from college same year as I did, who is a chemistry teacher. And I saw this pattern. The pattern is called We've Got Chemistry, and it has test tubes. I just thought they were really cute, and like a way to nod towards her love of chemistry without being like, I don't know, like a pun or something about it. So I knit this first sock in just a couple of days. It went really fast, and I have made some progress on this sock this week. Her birthday is this month, and I'm going to see her next weekend, so I'm hoping to have these done. The yarn I'm using is Knit Picks Stroll. This is the blue is the Rainstorm Heather colorway, and the gray is the Dove Heather colorway. And I do really like the lightly heathered look. It kind of gives it a little bit of like a hand-dyed yarn feeling to it, just a little bit. It adds a little bit more dimension to the knitting. Let me show you. I feel like it just kind of adds an extra element to the knitting. I like the Knit Picks heathered colorways. If you've heard me talk about gift knitting before, you'll know that Knit Picks is one of my go-to places to get yarn for gift knits. They have a wide variety of yarn weights and bases, superwash, non-superwash, lots of colors that are easy to put together. And then sometimes every month a different yarn is on sale. So it is a really good place that I found to get yarns for gifts. So yeah, these are the Weave It Chemistry socks. I don't remember who the designer is, but I will have the pattern linked down below and on my blog, which is now quiethappiness.com. quiethappinessknits.com. I'll get it down eventually. The last pair of socks that I am knitting right now is a test knit. And it is a test knit for Emma Janet Knits. It is her first sock design. And the pattern is going to be called, I just want to make sure I get this right, the Stronger Than the Storm socks. A portion of the pattern sales will be going to the National Eating Disorders Association. So it's fun. I like test knitting, and it's fun to support a brand new designer and to be working on a project where the proceeds are going to go towards something that's really important. She's studying, Emma's in college right now. She may be in graduate school, I don't remember. But she's studying to be a social worker. Which is amazing. I could never do it. So these are the socks. Again, knitting these on 9-inch circulars. And there's a color work portion, like a very geometric color work portion on the leg, and then stockinette for the rest of the sock. And I really like having color work on socks, I've discovered. It's so fun to knit, and it's fun to include maybe a mini skein or some leftover yarn that you might have in a fun way, besides doing heels, toes, and cuffs, which is fun to do, but sometimes it's fun to have another way to use a sock mini skein set. So this yarn is from Bad Wolf Girl Studios. The main color is her Silence in the Library colorway, which is an episode of Doctor Who, which I love. So as soon as I saw it, just the literary and TV show and movie yarn colorways get me every time. And so this is her Silence in the Library colorway, and then I added on a mini skein. It didn't come as a set, but I picked just from the colors, or from the pictures, I was like, oh, it looks like Silence in the Library has some purple, so I'll do a purple mini skein. But it's enough of a contrast that for the color work, I feel like you can still see the color work. It doesn't get lost like it would if it was maybe more of a yellow color or orange that was closer to the main color. Okay, so the last pair of socks I wanted to talk about is a finished object. So this year and this past Christmas and the Christmas before, I've done an Advent mini skein swap, which is really fun because I always love looking at the Advent calendars that indie dyers sell, but that's a lot of money to spend, and it's totally worth it. I always say this with indie dyed yarns. It seems like a lot of money, especially like if I don't really mention the prices around the rest of my family who doesn't knit because they're like, you spend how much on yarn? But like, it's worth it. But that doesn't mean that I always have the budget to spend on it. So this year I did an Advent swap with Sarah, and it was so fun. Sarah is like the master of swaps, man. So it's basically, well, I'll just show you. Well, it took me a while to decide what I wanted to knit with my mini skeins because I was going to be gone for a week in December for work, for training. I got to go down to Florida, which was so fun. I'd never been. Most of our time was spent in the hotel, but still fun. So I knew I was going to be traveling, so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to I wanted to knit on it every day basically. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to put the mini skeins into my scrap blanket because I was not going to be able to pack that and bring it with me. So I eventually settled on knitting some socks. So these are my massive Advent socks. So I knit these. I knit them technically. It was one at a time. I started out on one 9-inch circular, knitting the first one, thinking that I would buy another 9-inch circular at some point during the month to kind of like catch up, and so I could do them both at the same time. But then one of the days of the swap, Sarah had tucked a 9-inch circular needle into one of the days, like a little like before the halfway through the month or something. So I was able to use that second 9-inch circular to knit them concurrently. So the pattern, the colorwork pattern, is from the Pixel Rise socks. And then I used kind of like the template from a Pearl Soho free pattern called Little Cable Knee Highs, which, as it says in the name, actually the Pearl Soho pattern has like a small cable that runs up the back of the leg, and the increases are beside that. I obviously did not do the cable, but I used that as kind of like a template for the rate of the increases. And the Pixel Rise pattern has an afterthought heel, because since it's a colorwork pattern, the gusset increases would change the pattern. I did it anyway and just kind of made it up. It's a pretty simple colorwork pattern. It's not like a big chart. It's like a 4-stitch repeat, so it would get a little off. I didn't mind. So the heels, toes, and cuffs are the Green Gables colorway from Little Skein and the Big Bull, which I had used in the fall for my Odeline socks by Melanie of Braid and Tinker. And I feel like those were the socks that really got my sock mojo going again and made me want to knit socks and remember how socks could be a fun way to play with stitch patterns and color patterns and all that, instead of just being a vanilla in the background project. So thank you, Melanie. That was also a test knit, and I wear them all the time. But so I had enough yarn left over to do heels, toes, and cuffs. So I thought that would be a nice way to make them a little bit Christmassy by using a green yarn, but not too Christmassy. And so these were toe up, and I used Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off for the cuff. They're a bit slouchy. Like, I mean, it's a colorwork pattern, so it doesn't stretch a ton. But then once I have them on, they do tend to slouch a little bit. But like I was saying earlier, knee-high socks are primarily something that I wear at home anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And like I wore them the other night. I came home from work and I put on like a sweater and leggings, and I pulled these up over the leggings, and they do stay up better, like when there's that fabric underneath them. I just love these so much. And it's so fun to see how some of the colors that were maybe like a self-striping yarn look different on the two socks. And it was fun because Sarah and I labeled the minis we swapped. So then it was fun to see like, oh, I know who that dyer is, or like, oh, I've never heard of that person before. I'll go look them up now because I really love this yarn. And like I've never knit with Vine yarn or a homespun house yarn, and Sarah sent me some of those, so it was fun to be able to use some yarn from dyers that I had never purchased from before. Because there's so many amazing yarn dyers. But you know, obviously I cannot buy all the yarn as much as I wish I could, but I can't. Lavanya Patricella, I think that's how she says her name. She's a knitwear designer, but she posted a picture the other day. She is pregnant. I think when she posted, she was like 38 weeks pregnant, and she had made a dress, like a maternity dress to wear out of leftover yarns, and it was all kinds of beautiful and amazing. And I'm jealous because I want a scrappy dress now. So that's all I have to talk about today. so far as like actual knitting, I thought I would talk a little bit about knitting plans for this upcoming year. And I realized you can set goals any time of the year, and maybe it's almost better to set them at a different time of year so then you're not just like, yay, New Year's resolutions, and then they die away. But anyway, I bought a new planner. I've been following Elise Joy on Instagram for a while. Tons of you probably already know about her. She's amazing. And I always loved the look of her get to work book planners. But that was more than I was used to spending on a planner. But I really liked how they looked, and I'm kind of experimenting now that I'm out of college. I have primarily used planners in the past to keep track of homework assignments and when exams were happening and stuff like that. But now that, you know, I have a consistent work schedule and I'm not in classes anymore, like, how am I going to use planners now? So I bought her, she had like basically she has two planners, either January to December or July to June. I think July to June. So at the end of December, her July 2019 through June 2021s were on sale for a lot less than the full January to December. So I thought I would give it a try, see how I like the planner, and then if I like it, then I can save up and buy another one in the summertime and keep using it. So some of the things that I really liked, believe me, I'm getting to the knitting, I promise. But what I really loved were her project pages. And she also sells this as like a separate notepad. You can just get her project planning pages. Because it basically, you name the project, there's room for some notes, like the date that you're doing it, the deadline for when you want it done, and then some larger boxes and some smaller boxes for the action items that you can take to actually get this thing done. And there's lots of other cool things, like the end of every month has like a place to reflect on goals, a place to set some goals. Basically, I really love this planner. So I do have a few of the project pages where I broke down like specific action steps for different things. But this is my actions that I want to keep track of for using up more of my stash. I'm not necessarily doing like a yarn diet or anything like that. I'm kind of setting a limit on myself for how much money I can spend every month on yarn. I got that idea from Brown Girl Knits on Instagram. I set my own limit. And then I have sections because basically these are projects that I've had in my head, kind of like rolling around in my head for like, oh, I could use this yarn for this pattern, or like I'll buy the yarn to use for a specific pattern. So this was just a good way to get it out onto paper. Sweaters are definitely the biggest category. And this could easily change. Like, I already had one change that I had one plan for a sweater, a new pattern came out that I liked better, so I switched my goal for, oh, I want to make that one instead. And that's why I've never done like the Make 9 on Instagram. A, because I'm awful at following through on things, and B, like, what if something new came out that I wanted to make more than that one that I had? Like, I want to be excited about what I'm making, not doing it just because I put it on the list and don't really want it anymore. I did see somebody on Instagram did kind of like a Make 9 grid, except it was more like categories of things they wanted to make, which was a really cool idea. But I did this instead. So, like, on here I have the test knit, because I hadn't cast that on yet, but I was using stash yarn, so I put that on here. The chemistry socks that I'm working are on here, so I'll be able to cross those off. So yeah, this is just a way of helping me to remember what yarns I already have that maybe is tucked away in a basket on a shelf, so I don't see it all the time. But this way I can remember, oh yeah, I bought that yarn to use it for this thing. Number 1 on my list that I want to cast on really soon is the Grace pullover by, I think it's Braid Handmade. It's a bulky weight sweater with cables down the front, and I bought some yarn on Ravelry D-Stash to use for it, some Quince & Co. puffin yarn. I've used other Quince yarns and love them. I haven't used puffin yet. So I bought it in a nice gray color to knit that sweater, and I'm really excited. And hopefully that will be I mean, it's bulky yarn, so it'll be nice to work on during the winter, but also it will knit up faster so that even when I don't have a lot of knitting time during tax season when I'm working all the time, it'll get done faster because it's bulky weight yarn. That's the hope. So that's number one on my list that I want to get to. And if you're interested, I can let me know. I'll post a picture of this. I'll try to post a picture of this like on Instagram or something if you want to know what other patterns I'm looking at. All of this is also in my queue on Ravelry. My username on Ravelry is Emily Ruth B. And so there, it's not separated into categories like this page is, but that is where I also have links, like, and I'm linking to all the patterns that I want to make. So that is my knitting plans for 2020 and beyond, because I have 9 sweaters in this list. I've never in my life made 9 sweaters in a year. This is not going to be any different. So there will definitely be some of these that will roll forward to other years. I may change, be like, oh, I actually want to knit this pattern out of that yarn, and that's totally okay. But that way it's fun to like have a record of like, oh yeah, I was going to knit this one. Maybe I will come back to that pattern later with a different yarn, whatever. So that is all in my Get to Work book planner, which I really love so far. So I think that is everything I was going to talk about today. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit in a blurry background of Maine in the wintertime and some sunshine. We do indeed get some sun in the winter every once in a while. So until I see you next time, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you find some time for yourself today and look for the quiet happiness in your life. Bye.